is Michael Emery, and we've lived in Cochrane since September of 2018. Originally, we lived up in the northeastern Alberta, and a job opportunity brought us to the area, and we chose to move to Cochrane because I've been here a couple of times before. I like to mountaineer, so it's a nice jump-off point for going to the mountains. So I've always wanted to live here, and when the opportunity came to move to this area, we chose Cochrane. Originally, I'm from Ontario, a little town called Lindsay, which is in south central Ontario. Mental health has been with me my entire life. There was no starting point. When I was really young, I was molested by my uncle. My parents didn't know anything about it at the time. My mother was an alcoholic, and my father was worked a lot, and there seemed to be a lot of anger in the household all the time. If I really think back, I would say it's probably about when I was 5 that things really started to deteriorate. As a child, from 5 until they divorced when I was about 11, it was just a non-stop. There would be moments of peace during the week, and then the weekend would come and party and alcohol would come and the battles would start, and I would just sit on the stairs, sometimes 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, just waiting for the fight to start. And then I would be the one, trying to get in between them to keep them from hurting each other, and that was just the way that life was. And when you're trying to deal with that as a child, you're different from all the other children, because you're trying to look at things almost from an adult perspective, and you don't have that cognitive ability. So I started counseling when I was 11. I also became sexually active when I was 11. It just all went hand in hand. And then it's just a continuous evolution from there. So as I said, my parents separated. I went with my mother. She couldn't break free from her addiction issues. So my father took me away from her, but my father was searching for his own place in life. So in a lot of ways, I raised myself, and I prided myself on that fact that I raised myself. But when I look back in retrospect, I didn't do a very good job, right? The saving grace for me that kept me from really sliding into the depths of addiction and the other avenues that were available to me at those times was my grandmother. So, I attribute a lot to my grandmother. And, I wouldn't say keeping me on the straight and narrow, but being there when I needed somebody. So I went through high school, graduated high school, went to college, met somebody. I was a father at 19. Wasn't ready to be a father at 19. Had addiction issues that I wasn't dealing with, that I thought I was keeping well hidden and under control, but no, addiction controls you. You like to play that game that I'm in control, but you're not. After causing damage to my first wife, not physical damage, but just the not being what I was supposed to be, not being a husband, not being a good father, we separated numerous times, and then eventually we went our separate ways. Then I got into another relationship, and that relationship went south. Well, when that relationship went south, I was at a pinnacle with addiction. And that point, the avenue of choice for me was to attempt suicide. So obviously not successful. That landed me in a psych ward. And it was a good eye-opener that despite the things that I've been through, I'm not alone. And really, some of the people that I got to know really have much more painful experiences than I did. When you try to help others, there is a growth factor involved. And as I tried different avenues of helping people, I came to the realization that I can't help anybody. I can help myself, but the best way that I can help people to overcome their traumatic experiences, their addiction, whatever it happens to be, is simply to hold the space for them. Because the solutions to our problems, our individual problems, are within ourselves. And we just have to come to embrace that fact that we know what the answers are. Sometimes the answers are not what we want them to be, but that is a facet of life. Everything is not always what we want it to be. But at the end of the day, what we need is within us already. I still bat my head against the wall, trying to get into school, still trying to chase the degree, right? Get into that facet, but I also connected with things like public speaking. So embracing the fact that I am a storyteller, I like to talk, that I'm a creator. I enjoy creating, I love art. And I think part of it was the 70s. I don't think people had malicious intent, right? It was just the way that school was back then. And, you know, I am neurodivergent. When you're neurodivergent, you look at things differently. But we live in a society that is very compartmentalized, very siloed. You know, when you look at a tree, well, this is what you should draw. And if you're not within those confines, what are you doing? What is that? And so a lot of that messaging, and I'm not alone, but it's consistent messaging, trying to make people fit into a box that they don't fit into. As I got older, had more children, I came to realize, especially with my youngest children, that the best thing I can do for them is to empower that creativity in whatever direction it's going. Way back in public school, I had the creativity drive, writing creative stories, everything to do with being imaginative and, daydreaming, whatever you want to call it. I think part of that was an escape from something that you can't escape. Another aspect of that, though, is just being who you are, not having to have a mask. In bringing that to my children, my hope is that I break that cycle. For Brooklyn, Ashton, and Ashlyn, every couple argues. There's life stresses, money, jobs, etc., etc. But they never seen what I seen. They didn't have to experience any of that. And, the support is there for them to do what they need to do. If art is where you really want to be, then that's where you go. Last year, I was finally diagnosed with ADHD. That's amongst all my other mental health diagnoses, right? In addition to addiction, or, depending on how you look at it, they're part and parcel. So I'm pretty sure that because of the nature of ADHD or autism spectrum disorder, whichever it happens to be, that it's in there as well. So another part of that journey for me too is getting them to a place now where they can learn effective coping strategies for themselves, so that they don't have to be 51 when they discover, oh wow, that's why all that stuff happened. That's why I couldn't focus. That's why I couldn't stay there. That's why I had the, look at the shiny object syndrome, right? Squirrel on the treadmill. Providing for them the tools that they need early in life so that they can make the journey that they need to make as people. When you have mental health issues, and when you struggle with addiction, and when you experience trauma, especially childhood trauma, it's a lifelong journey. There's no quick fix. There's no, well, I've walked through that door, the youth is behind me now, the mental health issues, the addiction, whatever it happens to be, it's behind me now, I'm good to go, it's clear sailing. It's a day-to-day experience. Sometimes an hour-to-hour experience. Part of my ADHD is the fact that I'm a information sponge. And because I had such a long journey with mental health, I'm independent in that sense that I want to understand it. I don't want to take your word for what you're telling me. I want to be able to understand it too. So that got me into researching. So I would sometimes read 5-10 research journals a week on whatever particular subject it happened to be. Self-care has always been there to some degree or another. I've always been connected with nature, with wanting to be outside. Part and parcel of that too was being raised in the 70s. No computers, no cell phones, none of that stuff. So you played outside. But as I grew up, that connection with wanting to be outside, wanting to be in nature was always very strong. My father introduced me at a young age to canoeing, and I loved canoeing. Canoeing is part of our family history as well. Doing that was always therapeutic. It was always being in touch with nature was like being in touch with myself. You could be somewhere where you could be yourself. So the self-care aspect of it has definitely evolved. In moving out to Alberta from Ontario, it opened up other avenues to me, right? So, there's mountains. And there's so much symbology there, right? Tackling the mountain is like tackling addiction or like tackling mental health. Sports was another thing that was very self-care for me, and track and field. Individual sports. Because your performance at the end of the day was dependent on what you put into it. What you put into it is what you get out of it. Mountain climbing, what you put into it is what you get out of it. You don't get to the top unless you get to the top. Nobody's going to come and drag you. Nobody's going to heli you to the top or anything else. You've got to find it within yourself to get to where you got to go. So the self-care has definitely evolved. It's got more complex, but it's always involved nature. We tend to be lone wolves in our society these days, right? Oh, the cell phone, or there's all those arguments that we could get into that we're not. But we are social creatures, and those connections are so critical. Addiction or not, mental health issues or not, the connection is what really sustains us. So maintaining balance in your life, equilibrium, and maintaining those connections. If you're supporting someone, it's really about holding the space for them. It's not trying to solve their problem. I don't want somebody to solve my problem. And other people with addiction or mental health issues don't want somebody else to solve their problem either. There's underlying issues, and the individual that's experiencing those issues needs to embrace that fact that, okay, there's things that I need to deal with. It may be painful, it may be hard, it's going to be with me for the rest of my life, but I have to do this. So as someone who is supporting somebody going through that, just be there for them. The individual you're supporting, find their own journey, their own pathway. That is critical for supporting somebody. They have to find their own way. Because otherwise they're doing something for somebody else and not for themselves. If you are somebody who's going through these things, the realization that you are not alone. And it's not in a bad way, because there is some of that stigma out there that you're not alone. Many people have gone through it. It's not from that perspective. It's from the perspective that you're not alone. People have gone through it. They understand the journey you're on. They understand that you need to find your pathway, and they're there to listen. They're there to offer advice if you want advice. They're there to share their journey with you so you can see that yes, it is possible. So reach out, because it's so easy to recluse, so easy to turtle. Sometimes you have to. I do. Sometimes getting up in the morning and doing what needs to be done is very, very, very hard. As an ADDer, stimming. You know, that's why I got the long hair, because I can stim away when I need to stim away. And it's embracing those aspects of you as an individual, that you need to do what you have to do, but not get comfortable doing that. If you need to stim for an hour, stim for an hour. Move on. If you need to turtle for a day, turtle for a day. Then call a friend. Can we go for a coffee? I just need to get out. I just need to sit in a public place where there's other people, but I don't have to talk to anybody. Go to a mall. Just sit and people watch. I used to do that a lot. I wasn't interested in talking to anybody. I just want to see life occurring. It's a safe distance. At the end of the day, we come into this world alone. We leave this world alone. There is so much power within each and every one of us to do great things. We just need to learn to believe in ourselves, that we bring value to the table. You know, whether it's business or helping people, I've said it many times myself as an entrepreneur, and I've had other people say it many times who are seeking to help people as I do, that, they've heard that story before. But how do you know? Maybe your story is the story that they need, for them to perk up and go, hey, if John can do it, I can do it. When you believe in yourself and you say that it's me, I'm the one that can do this, you're connecting with that power. Watch a YouTube video. Find inspiration in a movie. Whatever connects with you, however the energy of the universe connects with you, that's where you need to go. You need to be compassionate, empathetic with yourself, and embrace the fact that it's a journey, that you may take 5 steps forward and 10 back, and the next day it might be 4 steps forward and none back. But that's just the ebb and flow of life. Be gentle with yourself, and understand that growth doesn't occur in the snap of the fingers, and more often than not, people who are really good for us, or situations that are really good for us, are often not in our front view. It can be to the side, they can be above, it can be below. Sometimes it can still be behind us. Always keep moving forward. A good friend of mine gave me a tiny little poster, and it talks about brave people are ones who have failed and say, okay, well, you know what, I'm going to try again tomorrow. So as I said, it's a very personal journey, and you really have to spend time with yourself. That was a very hard thing back when I was in my 20s and 30s, spending time with myself. There always had to be noise, always had to be doing something. Through a combination of First Nations experience, traditions, Buddhism, I enjoy talking to people, so I went out and got perspectives. I remember going and having a discussion with a Catholic priest about his perspectives on life and religion and spirituality, and getting different perspectives. And then when something connects, follow that path, right? Like what we do in coaching. We have all these strings going into the dark corners of our self. Well, pick a string and pull. Let's see what happens. And out it comes. Okay, well, it's not that bad. Create. Because creating allows you to connect with yourself. Creating allows you to slowly build your self-confidence. Creating is very personal. And it's really a wholesome lesson for life in that when I create something, other people may appreciate it, other people may not, and that's okay. What I create may be something that's recognizable or something that's not, and that's okay. We, as individuals, how we live, how we express ourselves is unique to each of us. So create, however that speaks to you. Carving soapstone, carving wood, painting, drawing, singing, doing videos, photography, etc., etc. Connect with yourself through art.